Today is Sunday, the 7th of April 2024, and we have 71 events to cover, going all the way back to the year 451. Starting with the most recent event, which happened 2 years ago, Ketanji Brown Jackson is confirmed for the Supreme Court of the United States, becoming the first black female justice. 3 years ago in 2021, in the COVID-19 pandemic, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announces that the SARS-CoV-2 alpha variant has become the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the United States. 4 years ago in 2020, COVID-19 pandemic, China ends its lockdown in Wuhan. In the same year, also in the COVID-19 pandemic, Acting Secretary of the Navy Thomas Modly resigns for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic on USS Theodore Roosevelt and the dismissal of Brett Crozier. 6 years ago in 2018, former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is arrested for corruption by determination of Judge Sergio Moro from the car wash operation. Lula stayed in prison for 580 days after being released by the Brazilian Supreme Court. In the same year, Syria launches the Douma chemical attack during the Eastern Ghouta offensive of the Syrian civil war. 7 years ago in 2017, a man deliberately drives a hijacked truck into a crowd of people in Stockholm, Sweden, killing 5 people and injuring 15 others. In the same year, US President Donald Trump orders the 2017 Shaheed missile strike against Syria in retaliation for the Khan Shaykhun chemical attack. 13 years ago in 2011, the Israel Defense Forces used their Iron Dome missile system to successfully intercept a BM-21 Grad launched from Gaza, marking the first short-range missile intercept ever. "15 years ago in 2009, former Peruvian President Alberto Fujimori is sentenced to 25 years in prison for ordering killings and kidnappings by security forces. In the same year, mass protests begin across Moldova under the belief that results from the parliamentary election are fraudulent. 21 years ago in 2003, in the Iraq War, US troops capture Baghdad. Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist regime falls 2 days later. 23 years ago in 2001, NASA launches the 2001 Mars Odyssey orbiter. 25 years ago in 1999, Turkish Airlines Flight 5904 crashes near Ceyhan in southern Turkey, killing 6 people. 29 years ago in 1995, in the First Chechen War, Russian paramilitary troops begin a massacre of civilians in Samarsky, Chechnya. 30 years ago in 1994, in the Rwandan genocide, massacres of Tutsis begin in Kigali, Rwanda, and soldiers kill the civilian Prime Minister Agati Uwilingiyimana. In the same year, Auburn Callaway attempts to destroy Federal Express Flight 705 in order to allow his family to benefit from his life insurance policy. 34 years ago in 1990, a fire breaks out on the passenger ferry Scandinavian Star, killing 159 people. In the same year, John Poindexter is convicted for his role in the Iran-Contra affair. In 1991, the convictions are reversed on appeal. "35 years ago in 1989, Soviet submarine Komsomolets sinks in the Barents Sea off the coast of Norway, killing 42 sailors. 36 years ago in 1988, Soviet Defense Minister Dmitry Yazov orders the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan. 41 years ago in 1983, during STS-6, astronauts Story Musgrave and Don Peterson perform the first Space Shuttle spacewalk. 42 years ago in 1982, Iranian Foreign Affairs Minister Sadeh Ghotbzadeh is arrested. 44 years ago in 1980, during the Iran hostage crisis, the United States severs relations with Iran. 46 years ago in 1978, development of the neutron bomb is cancelled by President Jimmy Carter. 47 years ago in 1977, German federal prosecutor Siegfried Buback and his driver were shot by two Red Army faction members while waiting at a red light. 48 years ago in 1976, Member of Parliament and suspected spy John Stonehouse resigns from the Labour Party after being arrested for faking his own death. "52 years ago in 1972, in the Vietnam War, Communist forces overrun the South Vietnamese town of Loc Ninh. 53 years ago in 1971, also in the Vietnam War, President Richard Nixon announces his decision to quicken the pace of Vietnamization. 55 years ago in 1969, the Internet's symbolic birth date, publication of RFC 1. 56 years ago in 1968, two-time Formula One British World Champion Jim Clark dies in an accident during a Formula 2 race in Hockenheim. 59 years ago in 1965, representatives of the National Congress of American Indians testify before members of the US Senate in Washington, D.C. against the termination of the Colville tribe. 60 years ago in 1964, IBM announces the System 360. 68 years ago in 1956, Francoist Spain agrees to surrender its protectorate in Morocco. 69 years ago in 1955, Winston Churchill resigns as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom amid indications of failing health. 70 years ago in 1954, United States President Dwight D. Eisenhower gives his domino theory speech during a news conference. 76 years ago in 1948, the World Health Organization is established by the United Nations. 78 years ago in 1946, the Soviet Union annexes East Prussia as a Kaliningrad Oblast of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. 79 years ago in 1945 in World War II, the Imperial Japanese Navy battleship Yamato, one of the two largest ever constructed, is sunk by United States Navy aircraft during Operation 10 Go. 80 years ago in 1944, in the Freghetto massacre, soldiers belonging to the German 356th Infantry Division killed 30 Italian civilians and 15 partisans near Casteldicci in central northern Italy. "81 years ago in 1943, the Holocaust in Ukraine. In Terebovlia, Germans order 1,100 Jews to undress and march through the city to the nearby village of Plebanivka, where they are shot and buried in ditches. In the same year, Ioannis Rallis becomes collaborationist Prime Minister of Greece during the Axis occupation. Also in the same year, the National Football League makes helmets mandatory. 84 years ago in 1940, Booker T. Washington becomes the first African American to be depicted on the United States postage stamp. 85 years ago in 1939, Benito Mussolini declares an Italian protectorate over Albania and forces King Zog I into exile. 91 years ago in 1933, prohibition in the United States is repealed for beer of no more than 3.2% alcohol by weight, 8 months before the ratification of the 21st Amendment to the United States Constitution, now celebrated as National Beer Day in the United States. 91 years ago in 1933, Nazi Germany issues the law for the restoration of the professional civil service, banning Jews and political dissidents from civil service posts. 97 years ago in 1927, AT&T engineer Herbert Ives transmits the first long-distance public television broadcast from Washington, D.C. to New York City, displaying the image of Commerce Secretary Herbert Hoover. 98 years ago in 1926, Violet Gibson attempts to assassinate Italian Prime Minister Benito Mussolini. 102 years ago in 1922, Teapot Dome Scandal. United States Secretary of the Interior Albert B. Fall leases federal petroleum reserves to private oil companies on excessively generous terms. 118 years ago in 1906, Mount Vesuvius erupts and devastates Naples. In the same year, the Algeciras Conference gives France and Spain control over Morocco. 156 years ago in 1868, Thomas D'Arcy McGee, one of the Canadian Fathers of Confederation, is assassinated by a Fenian activist. 162 years ago in 1862, American Civil War. The Union's Army of the Tennessee and the Army of the Ohio defeat the Confederate Army of Mississippi near Shiloh, Tennessee. 193 years ago in 1831, Pedro II becomes Emperor of the Empire of Brazil. 200 years ago in 1824, the Mechanics' Institution is established in Manchester, England at the Bridgewater Arms Hotel as part of a national movement for the education of working men. The institute is the precursor to free universities in the city, the University of Manchester, UMIST, and the Metropolitan University of Manchester, MMU. "219 years ago in 1805, Lewis and Clark expedition. The Corps of Discovery breaks camp among the Mandan tribe and resumes its journey west along the Missouri River. In the same year, German composer Ludwig van Beethoven premieres his Third Symphony at the Theater an der Wien in Vienna. 226 years ago in 1798, the Mississippi Territory is organized from disputed territory claimed by both the United States and the Spanish Empire. It is expanded in 1804 and again in 1812. 229 years ago in 1795, the French First Republic adopts the kilogram and gram as its primary unit of mass. "234 years ago in 1790, Greek War of Independence. Greek revolutionary Lambros Katsanis loses 3 of his ships in the Battle of Andros. 236 years ago in 1788, settlers establish Marietta, Ohio, the first permanent settlement created by US citizens in the recently organized Northwest Territory. 257 years ago in 1767, the end of the Burmese-Siamese War of 1765 to 1767. 300 years ago in 1724, premiere performance of Bach's St. John Passion, BWV 245, at St. Nicholas Church, Leipzig. 483 years ago in 1541, Francis Xavier leaves Lisbon on a mission to the Portuguese East Indies. 503 years ago in 1521, Ferdinand Magellan arrives at Cebu. 575 years ago in 1449, Felix V abdicates his claim to the papacy, ending the reign of the final antipope. 676 years ago in 1348, Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV charters Prague University. 883 years ago in 1141, Empress Matilda becomes the first female ruler of England, adopting the title Lady of the English. 1,495 years ago in 529, First Corpus Juris Civilis, a fundamental work in jurisprudence, is issued by Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian I. 1,573 years ago in the year 451, Attila the Hun captures Metz in France, killing most of its inhabitants and burning the town. So that is all we have for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you found our little trip back through history both relaxing and informative. If you did indeed like the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and also consider leaving a comment below. All feedback is very much welcome. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. It will really help the channel grow and will ensure that you are notified of future videos. Be sure to turn on notifications so that you are notified of future videos as soon as they are posted. Thank you again, and I hope to see you next time.